Live. So I guess welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast. Well, what's usually a podcast dedicated to the Premier League, the A-League and more. Today it's something else, boys. I'm Colby. I'm joined by Tommy, Jesse and Damo. How are we today, gents?
Yeah, good. A little bit down on the recent lockdown announcements, but we're coping.
It is what it is.
It is indeed.
But otherwise, well, mate.
Is this class as a vodcast, guys? Is it a vodcast? Can we call it that?
I don't know what this is, boys. And you know, behind the scenes for the listeners, we've been here for the past half an hour trying to sort out smooth over any technical issues, which would otherwise prevent us from doing this broadcast. But I think we've got here. And we are here doing this sort of bit of bonus content in this form because we've of course got our Premier League season review podcast coming up tomorrow, which is going to be recorded tomorrow. So we thought we'd do a wrap up of the A-League for this week. Boys, might just whip into a few updates before we round up on the games that have been played this week. And we'll kick things off, I guess, with a question from HSN on Twitter. Wants to know our thoughts on the quality of these winter matches so far. Overall, they think it's been pretty good signs, given some of the matches have no meaning and lack of fitness and crowds. But what did you make of it? Let's start with you, Damo.
Yeah, some games have been great. I mean, I've been watching a lot of football lately, and it's hard to compare the A-League to other leagues normally, but comparing it to, earlier on in the season, I think the standard is pretty much the same as it has been. I don't know if the fact that it's in winter has contributed anything to the standard of the games, in my opinion, but it's still been good and fun to watch.
Tommy, what about you, mate? Have you thought the quality was all right?
I think the pros and the cons have kind of cancelled each other out, and I think as a result we're sort of seeing probably similar quality what we would normally see, even though sort of the weather's cooler, but the players aren't sort of as seasoned as they maybe otherwise normally would be in terms of match fitness.
We're definitely looking on the pitch, but what about off the pitch? I mean, do you reckon a man could stand there with latex gloves in the middle of summer and get away with it?
Those were some heavy-duty gloves last night. But I think Boz has just been through just about every kind of glove so far. He had the winter woolies out last night in the Sydney Melbourne City match, and a couple of matches before that, he had the little food prep gloves on, which I particularly liked as well.
That's right.
Just getting ready to cook up a storm.
We can turn this podcast into Bozza Watch, I'm pretty sure, and just talk about Bozza for an hour.
Better do that before he does.
He does something entertaining every match. But yeah, obviously there's been a this week has been sort of the football's been almost a bit overshadowed by the Bozza v Speed. I don't know what you want to call it, stoush, but it looks like Bozza's he's ready to blow. He's ready to blow, boys. So is he going to have a meltdown this weekend? I mean, well,
ready
it's next week, I guess.
It's a contact sport copy. It's a contact sport.
Oh God. Who's the expert here? Who do we have to ask this question? I don't know who the expert is.
Yeah, I mean, again,
it's either Tommy or me. We've both got the big headphones, boys.
If MTAG members were A-League commentators, I mean, that's niche.
Yeah,
I guess if there's one thing that MTAG has over Fox Sports at the moment, I don't think we've ever come close to having a beef like mid pod or something like that. Maybe he did, but he hit it well.
I've got the gloves on, boys, just in case. We're ready to go.
Yes, that's elite.
It's pretty chilly in here, so you can never be too careful. And another question from HSN, just on some news and updates before we kick into it. MacArthur this week it's confirmed a couple of new signings, boys. I think they confirmed Mark Milligan as a marquee Milligan during the week, and also Federici and Denny Jonro was confirmed in addition to Tommy Orr, who was the sort of first announced signing of MacArthur. Thoughts on those boys? best, worst? Who do you like?
I think I made the comment during the week that they're building a Socceroos B team.
That's not a bad shout.
I really like Denny Jonru. I think he's looked like a quality player at City, but has sort of been struggling for game time a little bit because him and Metcalf are both sort of fighting for the same spot. And I think they went with Metcalf because he's a bit more mobile. And but Jonru, I think he's shown his quality in patches. But I think it's great for him and great for the league and great for Australia that he's going to be getting, I think, a bit more game time than MacArthur.
Who's better, Jonru or Max Burgess? Woo!
Good, delicious.
Well, I tell you what, like
Burgess is in better form, but Jonro's got better, higher ceiling.
Yep.
Yeah, I think most people would say that.
Good shout.
The only concern I would have for Denny Jonro is we don't know what the rest of the squad's going to look like yet, because if you remember when the Woo was being set up and they signed Pasquale, we all thought that he would flourish there and be able to make his mark on that team, and then they just built a team and sort of without him, and he's barely got a look in there, apart from the odd appearance off the bench.
And can we judge these signings too? I know that we're obviously 3 or 4 in, but until we see the rest of the squad, I mean, are we waiting for a David Silva to join later on? I mean, that's the question on everyone's lips. Is there another marquee around the corner?
Question on Durga's lips.
Angletown Stadium.
Maybe he'll sign up for a 10-game guest contract and then play 3.5 games.
That's right. This is not running
Milligan,
with the ball.
Mark Milligan as a marquee, boys. We were talking about this a bit on the group chat during the week, but I mean, have you seen a more uninspiring marquee? Like wonderful Socceroo and wonderful player for Australia, but come on.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember who said it during the week, but I think I saw it on Twitter that it's like this spot was made for a different Socceroo and he decided not to come, so they've just filled it with Milligan, who was the next best option.
Well, I think,
and I also wonder whether there was a couple of options ahead of him.
I think A-League meme said something like, Mum, can I get a Yedinak? And it's like, you've got a perfectly good Milligan at home. It sums it up, really, doesn't it?
And another question we've got here, boys, comes in from Tommy's dad, Steve, via text. Shout out to Tommy's dad. We'd happily have you on the podcast anytime, Steve. There's been heaps of games on at Bank West in the NRL and A-League. We've seen players slipping regularly already. Is this a concern for fans and players moving forward?
To be honest, I'm not a huge grass expert.
I don't know what they're slipping. What are they slipping on?
But I do think we should demand an investigation into the slipping of on the grass and the players wearing long skirts.
I mean, Damo, not to pile the pressure on, but I mean, you're probably the only one out of the 4 of us that's got a
all the NRL players.
You're the only one out of the 3 of us that's got a back lawn, Damo. So can you make any comment on the quality of the grass there?
I think just soft ground underneath, you need to get the big long studs. I don't know what I'm talking about.
maybe that's the big
if anything, I would have thought it would
comes out of the maybe this is the big thing to come out of the move to winter, is that all the players will have to start wearing the longer studs that they could previously get away with in summer.
But seriously, that stadium will have had so much traffic. There's an A-League game there every 2 days, and the NRL are still playing games out of there as well because it's one of the only safe venues to do all the COVID restrictions from. So there's probably 4 to 5 fixtures a week across 3 different sports going on there. I mean, it's bound to be a shit pile after a while.
It's going to be looking.
When you said traffic there, Damo, I thought you were out to go into transport chat. So sorry, you got me excited there. I'm not sure what the Western Sydney infrastructure is like.
We're talking about experts. We'll cross the Tommy for transport chat.
I'm only good on how to get there. Just once you get there, though, I'm useless. I reckon, having said that, though, it could be.
I'm
you could have
surprised
Bank West starting to look like Faulkner.
Though.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I reckon you could be starting to look
that's
like
right,
Faulkner
Tommy,
Park at
exactly.
the end of the season.
Well, they haven't got a cricket pitch in the middle, so I think they're doing a little bit better than Faulkner Park and the SCG. It has to be said.
Mm.
And just before we do jump, one final thing before we do jump into the matches, boys. Tommy, did you want to give a shout out or a bit of a promo for the what is it, the fourth monthly MTAG Cup coming up?
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't call it the annual one just yet, considering
feels annual. This COVID period.
Yeah, I know, right? So yeah, next Saturday. So what's that? Saturday the 8th of August. We're running another More Than a Game Cup. So it's a Football Manager 20 Cup. So get into our DMs on either Twitter or Facebook if you're interested in getting along with that. Be A-League and Kiwi and Australian players only, with like a bit of a draft format. So yeah, it was a lot of fun last time. Didn't have that many people get on board, but I think this time we've got a few more people interested. So a little bit more notice this time as well. I think last time it seemed to get a little bit lost in I think in a few people's timelines after retweeting the same message over and over again. So yeah, this time there's already a few people that are on board. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
We got any celeb sign-ups, Tommy? That's all I'm interested in.
You mean other than me?
Have you got any blue ticks? Come on.
No, not yet. And I guess as the week starts, I'm going to be sliding into Scott Jamison's DMs and who else? Adam LaFondra. I know he sort of was interested, and who's the other one?
This is like the time you slid into
LaFondra. You got to get LaFondra as well. Yep.
No, that never happened. I don't know what you're talking about, Damo. And then you've got that. Sorry, his name escapes me. The Sydney-based journo, soccer Twitter.
Ray Gatt, is he joining us?
I reckon he wouldn't know what Football Manager is, mate.
Vince Regari.
That's the one. Vince Regari last time was sort of a polite denial last time. So I reckon this time I can.
I think facing Vince Regari for a while, Tommy.
Sorry, Colby.
Good-o. Yeah. No, that's it. I'm only interested in blue ticks, as I said. Vince would be a big get though, Tommy. So Vince, if you're listening, get around to the MTAG Cup, please. All right, boys, let's get into the games. Last night, I guess we'll start off with Melbourne City, Sydney FC. So Melbourne City, this was their first game back after a 132-day absence. Ended up being quite convincing winners over Sydney last night. Speed at the end of this called it a massive psychological blow and a big win. But was it?
Yeah, I don't know, and to be honest, I don't think so because Sydney are a pretty well drilled team, and they'll know that one loss in a game that doesn't mean a hell of a lot will obviously not be ideal, but they'll be looking for a few weeks' time, I think, where things really where things actually mean something. So I don't think they'll be too concerned about this loss.
The long balls unpicked them.
Yeah, but it's. Yeah, absolutely. Damo, what did you make of City's performance last night?
I think given that they hadn't played in what I think he says 132 days, that it was a pretty smooth performance all around. Sydney probably have a little bit of a hangover, a little bit of a I don't care for the rest of the regular season now they've won the league. But still, all in all, a great result for City, and I wouldn't go as far as saying what Speedy said. It was a huge, psychological advantage going into the finals, but it is going into the finals with a run of form we've seen is a huge game breaker in the A-League. So any win at this stage of the season is huge, particularly over a Sydney side that's been so good.
It seemed to me like Sydney would. Yeah, it seems that they were doing a bit of rotating and a bit of tinkering just ahead of the finals, and especially given the fixture congestion as well. You had Paolo Retre at right back, who we saw was at fault for that noon goal, and plenty of rotation otherwise. But do you think the rotation notwithstanding, does that sort of give a bit of a form concern for Sydney? Like a loss is still a loss, right? And rotation still rotation.
It's a tough thing to measure, Colbs, because I think this is the one little thing about having a system that's built around a Premier's finish and then the finals, is that there's that little liminal space in between where some of the games just don't matter. They literally don't. I mean, if you're Phoenix right now and you're not second or third, it doesn't really matter to you, and you can't win the premiership. And then you've got teams like Sydney who they've just absolutely obliterated everybody points wise, and now they're just gearing up for the finals. I completely agree about momentum. You want to have momentum going into the finals, but at the same time, you also want to have legs going into the finals. So this is the only opportunity you have before that period to actually tinker with your lineups and test the squad. So I've seen it a little bit with the Phoenix in the last couple of weeks. I'm not reading too much into those results, and I think Sydney will be the same.
I think it's probably a good timing for Sydney to have a loss as well. Obviously, they did lose to Newcastle last week, but it's probably good that they get this out of the way, and then they can sort of have a bit of a reset in a game where really there's not much riding on it, and that way they can sort of, like I say, have a bit of a mindset reset to say, okay, all right, and really sort of build some form and performances for the next coming weeks, where obviously it starts getting important.
And Damo, what's with Sydney FC and shit haircuts? We saw Lockie Wales' little blonde tips, and got Ryan Grant, who, albeit he was on the sideline, covered up respectfully by a miniature beanie in this game. But you've had that Redmayne disaster over the off season as well, and there's just more shit haircuts than I can count in that team.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really one to speak about good or bad haircuts.
No. Gee whiz. Well, I mean, all right. Maybe we record this by the end of lockdown and see how the rest of us are all handling that, and we're probably in the same camp.
Well, it's the kind of chat you can get away with. It's the kind of chat you can get away with on a podcast, but when you're on video, it's they're not really jokes you can be making.
Yeah.
Wellington, Western Sydney Wanderers, boys. Jesse, I understand you saw this one. Sydney got up 1-0 over your Knicks. Do you want to talk us through it?
I think the Wanderers deserved to win, and they definitely there was much more hunger on their side, and there's that ugly. There's a lot of extra time after that ugly clash with Muller and Fenton early in the game. That's like you never want to see in any game. So that was pretty awful to watch. But by all accounts, since then we've heard that he's recovering okay, Muller, from what I've heard. So thank goodness for that, because that was awful. But as far as the game's concerned, I mean, De Vere with a couple of silly fouls, and that last one, I mean, it was only going to be one result. It was going to be a yellow as soon as he started getting in the way and pulled him down. So, yeah, the old adage that we love on MTAG, the old they just wanted it more. That pretty much summed it up for me. Again, just going back to what I said about Sydney, I mean, I don't feel like the Knicks have got anything to play for here. I mean, I know that they've got to play themselves into form, but if they completely flop in the first week of finals, that might be the result. But I still feel like they're building towards something, they're planning something, and I don't think they're too concerned about the results at this stage. I thought the after-match interviews with Stephen Taylor are quite funny. If you've caught any of those, he's got the classic Geordie accent, but he also, he stands there and it sounds like he's reading off a script, and like doesn't matter what they ask, doesn't matter what curly question that they ask him, he just goes, yep, and then the boys will obviously go back to reset, and we'll take a look at the whiteboard, and we'll be back at it next week. Thanks very much. And it's like, He's just programmed. The man's programmed. Into
years
doing
and
that. But there was
years and years of media training.
One highlight though had to be Colby though, the shithousery with the goalkeeper. We've all seen it. It's always good to see a bit of colour in the game, and as far as if that gives us a goal in finals time, I'll be pretty pleased with Steve.
Years and years of shithousery training.
That's right. Can't coach that.
You can't.
But,
you can't. And Tommy, speaking of shithousery, I'll just throw to you. Can I just get a little bit more of a word on the being the king of shithousery of the pod? Just on the niggle in this one, we know very well from Bozza that it's a contact sport this week. But can you just talk us through a couple of those incidences, particularly the Fenton clash and the De Vere second yellow? Like, what did you make of those?
Yeah, well, like I thought, like obviously De Vere's second yellow, there was a little bit, I think, a little bit of bad luck involved in the second yellow, because I think, like for me, it wasn't clear whether or not like he'd actually pulled him down, or if there was more just like I guess a tangle of legs. It's when you get into that position and you're behind the player and you're sort of trying to catch up to them, though, it can be very, very risky. And I guess that's what we saw, and whether or not he was guilty of sort of deliberately fouling him or not, I think sort of remains to be seen. But yeah, definitely deserved a yellow, I think, for that one. But for the earlier one for De Vere, I actually thought like that was much more of a 50-50 call about whether or not it was even a foul. So I mean, if you decide that it is a foul, obviously it has to be a yellow card for that for the first one. But regarding the second, regarding the Fenton clash, though, I mean, yeah, that was pretty ugly, and I don't think anyone likes to see those sort of incidences when they're watching at home. Not for the faint of stomach.
One person, Tommy, who was watching at home was your dad, Steve. And he's got another question for us about that Fenton incident, that he was only given a yellow card, which sent Nikolai Muller to hospital. He wants to know, why is poor heading technique treated differently to other types of dangerous tackles by referees? And I thought that was a really great question.
I'm staying out of this one. Jesse, Damo, you guys go first, and then I'll jump in.
I don't know. I feel like heading technique is very poor across the board these days, and all it can talk about concussions and not letting children head the ball just contributes to more and more of this happening, that kind of stuff happening, and it's only going to get worse. But I don't know why it's treated in a less way. Maybe because heading is more like a 50-50 challenge more often than when it's on the ground. I don't really have a great answer for that, to be honest.
I think it's I think that whole thing is based, Colby, on somebody not being crazy enough to put their head in that position in the first place. I mean, the laws assume that you wouldn't be that self-destructive because you could come off worse off in doing so. So I suppose it's a little bit of a grey area. It's a very good question.
It was like that meme that Tommy shared of Souček going through the door.
That's right. That's right. That's actually that's the Premier League's Opseth, actually, Colby. We're referring to Souček now.
Oh gosh.
I actually like in hindsight, I think it's a pretty decent shout. This is probably red card worthy, because I mean, if this is I guess a regular tackle, sort of using your feet to go for the ball, and you're miles off, like this, it would be dangerous or careless or reckless. So yeah, it was pretty violent, and it obviously when Muller came off second best, but I thought the referee, I can't remember who it was, but he was very, very quick to display the yellow. And I even wondered, sometimes you see some referees, they take a moment to pause, and obviously they're taking in the situation, but they're considering what course of action to take. And I thought in this one, Ames, I think it was Ames, wasn't it? He was Ames, yeah. Yeah, I think he might have been in his zeal to display the yellow, he hasn't thought about it enough, and when probably a red card might have actually been worthwhile, instead he's got the yellow out, he's got the cheddar out, and instead of considering, okay, is this red or yellow, he's got displayed the yellow to sort of calm the tensions of the moment. So I can kind of understand how you could go down that path. But yeah, I think he's probably undercooked it.
Do you think
no VAR in this one? By the way, boys.
Just about to say that if VAR is there, do they get sent off?
They could have upgraded
Does it get
it.
overturned? Yeah.
Potentially. Because that one in particular was quite dangerous and quite reckless. So yeah, I think you're right, Damo. I think VAR takes a look at that and that gets upgraded and that solves the problem that Tommy was saying. Like, you know, and that's what VAR is there for. It's like refs making these calls in the heat of the moment. They might not have had the time to step back and take a second to think about it. That's what VAR sort of does. That's VAR doing its job. Just before we do move on, we've actually got a few live viewers who I just want to thank for joining us. Obviously, our mate Sal Talks Soccer is I can see him popping up in the chat, as well as Ivan Strogan. Thanks boys for getting around us. Appreciate that. I have no idea what this is sounding like because at least on my end I'm having like quite a few internet issues. So hopefully this sounds like something coherent.
Cobbs,
let's move on to the next game, though, boys. And this was an absolutely wild one. Adelaide 5, Perth 3. Yeah, Jesse, go on.
I was just going to say, maybe the man's just on a bender since Arsenal won the FA Cup, and I mean, I think the question for Sal is, has he had any sleep? Because
I don't think Sal's gone to bed.
It sounds like the man. I don't think he's gone to bed. I mean, that's my early money.
Well, correct us if we're wrong, Sal, but you must be buzzing. Arsenal winning another Arsenal Cup. All right, Adelaide 5, Perth 3. Tommy, do you want to take us through this one? This was crazy.
Yeah, mate. This was a real A-League game for the purists here. In this one, obviously, everyone knows the score. It finished 5-3 to Adelaide. But yeah, pretty entertaining match for the neutral. I mean, I had this one on the iPad on my lap whilst Batchy in Paradise was on. So you can just guess I didn't see much of Batchy in Paradise.
Both full of drama.
So, for those that didn't know, 8 goals and a saved penalty in the 13th minute. It was 4-1 to Adelaide at half time. And I think everyone by that point sort of realised, this is over. But Perth, I guess, made a go of it at least. So it was a pretty entertaining match right until the end. I thought Adelaide's mobility and energy really won out on the day over Perth's organisation. And I tell you what, I felt bad for Tratt. I think he's the right-sided centre-back for Perth, because he had an absolute stinker. Gave away a penalty, which ended up getting saved, and then it just ended up getting skinned for, I think it was Halloran or Lockie Brooks' goal. And yeah, just one of those games where, like, we've all had them, where you walk off and go, oh, geez, I couldn't have finished that game any sooner. But really entertaining game. Couple of really nice goals. A couple of young players for Adelaide really stood up, and just a great game of football to watch. Like, not a lot of good defending on show, but great game to watch.
Just one thing that really stood out to me, boys, aside from the goal fest, well, that sort of didn't stand out to me in a way, because I was also sort of just catching this one on my phone while other things were being played on my TV, and I was half cooking dinner as well, and I was getting up to sort of cook dinner, and every time I'd get up to stir the dinner and come back, there's another goal had been scored. It was just one of those ones where I just had to let the dinner start burning, because just had to sit down and give this one a bit of attention.
I was
Adelaide at times
devastated.
did appear to be everywhere on the pitch, and it sort of occurred to me that McGree, Mork, Opseth, Halloran, Kito, they all just look like the same bloke.
That cookie cutter A-League look.
Spot on, mate. Spot on.
I was pretty devastated watching, because I wasn't actually watching this game live. I did go back and watch the highlights. I was watching the AFL. I'm a Melbourne Demons supporter, and I switched over at half time to see that Adelaide had scored more goals than Melbourne had kicked points by half time. Melbourne were losing 50-3 or something. So that was pretty depressing for me to miss a game like that in the A-League.
That hurts. That hurts.
Yeah, and that's like the final day of the Premier League a little bit, isn't it? When you've got some game competing with it, and you're like, okay, I'm going to watch the game, but you're half watching your phone because something else is inevitably blowing up somewhere else.
It's great to see Sal hasn't gone to bed, so just confirming that.
And on Adelaide's youth as well, boys. We've mentioned and I suppose the youth of Perth, but we're seeing a lot of it in this sort of post-COVID period. I guess given the rotation and given that some of the marquees have returned overseas and things like that. Got a question from Neil Simons on Twitter. Will the young players coming through potentially drive up interest in the competition? Players like Azani, who are celebrated nowadays because they came from the A-League. Are we seeing a lot more young, exciting players come through?
Yeah, I'm a real big fan of this. Going to games every week and seeing a player like Azani sort of come onto the scene, you think, oh, who's this guy? I've never heard of him before. And then sort of you see someone get their grounding in a team, and then all of a sudden they turn into a bona fide star. It's really exciting. And Adelaide, I guess in particular, some of these players, they've like Dorigo, I think, was doing really well even before lockdown. And so Adelaide fans obviously would have seen him sort of come onto the scene, know nothing about him. Then they could brag to all their friends, oh yeah, you need to check out this guy. And then before you know it, like some of those players, like for example, Dorigo, become sort of like league-wide sort of household names for lack of a better term. And yeah, it's exciting, and we talk about sort of the lack of narrative sometimes in the A-League, and but the development of players like that is, I guess, one of the massive bonuses about the A-League. You do see players playing their first professional games, and then possibly, for example, like Arzani, like he was being touted as like someone who should have gone to the World Cup, for example. So yeah, really exciting.
If we're talking about young players becoming household names, can we talk about the best name in the A-League?
Go on. Who is it?
I don't want to pronounce it wrong, but it's definitely Pacific Nyong'obe.
That's a
good mail on that day. I think that was bang on.
That is fantastic.
And the celebration, the Sam Kerr celebration to match was just as good.
Or the Camp Sober failure to launch celebration. Just absolute A-League areas that he managed to get that celebration in before Elvis got to do it officially. So, and they did make mention of that on the commentary, I think. But it was quite a well-taken goal, his goal as well. Very
good goal. Nifty little touch. I've loved the way he stole it off. Who was it the left back? I can't remember who it was. He literally stole it off his toe and decided, well, I'm going to do this myself.
He's got to score at that point, doesn't he?
Couple of one thing I saw in this game, were the Perth fans singing "We're all going to Optus"? I could hear that at various points in the game, and I'm like, one, was there Perth fans there, and two, were they singing "We're all going to Optus"? And three, if so, why?
I don't know.
I think it was just a massive. I think it's just a massive bunch of anti 5G people in the crowd. Actually, Colby, easy mistake to make.
I was thinking they were like it was like the anti Fox Sports ultras in the crowd, just saying, well, the A-League going to Optus.
All about that.
I did see a comment on Twitter that said, all these games with no crowd and they're pumping in crowd noise. They're really disappointed that we haven't got a "you fat bastard" from the shed end pumped into games yet.
Yeah, I don't think they're allowed to pump in the shed end noise. They have to censor too much of it.
Doesn't meet the PG rating for the A-League on TV.
Anything else stand out to you in this game, boys?
One thing I liked was I think it was Gomolka's set pieces for Adelaide. At least two of his corners led to goals, and one to I guess to look out for the future. Remember the name?
I don't want to keep agreeing with myself, but just Adelaide's aerial threat, Colbs. I've talked about it in previous weeks, but they just they look like a little bit of a force in the box, and that's actually causing problems for teams that are pretty well structured. They can't seem to beat them in the air.
Well, against a team
probably,
that's stacked with tall defenders as well, right? Like Perth.
Yes, exactly. Like Perth. Perth are stacked with tall blokes, and Adelaide, I don't think any of them are especially tall. I mean, Jakobsen maybe, but he doesn't score that many. I think it's got to be. We've got to come back to the fact that they all look like the same bloke. The opposition don't know who to mark. Just flying in and out of the box.
Diversity, boys. That's what we associate with Adelaide.
Yeah, always
just like this podcast.
With an old wooden ship, but.
Final game that we'll talk through is Melbourne victory 1, Brisbane 2. Damo, do you want to talk us through this one at all?
Yeah, look, the first half, I felt like not really that much happened. There was a couple of really good saves from both goalkeepers who kind of stole the show in the first half. Matt Acton, I was particularly impressed with. He's playing for a contract right now, and he seemed to do this over the years. I feel he was at Brisbane, and when he played well, but then made calamitous mistakes when he had a bit of confidence. And I feel like he's a real highlight goalkeeper. He makes like these fantastic saves, but then he does something ridiculously stupid and gives away a goal.
Just acting up for the cameras.
There he is. But first half, there wasn't really much of note apart from a couple of good saves from goalkeepers. Although Brisbane kind of late on in the first half really started to take over, I felt. Brad Inman, who had a really poor start to the game, started to play quite well, got himself involved. Scott McDonald was probably the best game he's played since he's been at the Raw. And he really, for lack of a better term, grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. And it was the two of those two who combined for the goal just the other side of half time, which was a towering header from all 5'6" of Scott McDonald, which was pretty impressive to see.
Made himself big.
Yeah. And the second goal as well from Brisbane was some great lead up play, some passing play from the back through the midfield and then out wide to Corey Brown, who it was his 100th game for Brisbane, and I think it was the first time he's ever put in a decent cross.
That's a good ratio. It's 1 to 100. Good crosses from Corey Brown. And
I think Ray Denton in his second game for the club scored a goal. And I think Brenton Speed, I was pretty annoyed with his commentary actually here when he said, wouldn't Fowler and his assistant be really proud of what they've built at the club, built at Brisbane when that goal went in? And I was like, well,
everyone on Brisbane
Raw
Robbie
Fowler is not watching Brisbane Raw right now. It's the last thing on his mind.
That's what got me blocked by Robbie, because like the Rawcast were going off about this, and they did this big Twitter tirade, and I retweeted them, and I just said something like, "Oh, Robbie, if you, like," they were like, "Oh, fuck off, he's not watching. Robbie doesn't care about this, blah blah blah." And then I retweeted them saying, "Oh, Robbie, if you are watching, can you just tell us why Mirza Moratovic hasn't been selected tonight?" And then next minute, I went to Robbie's page to see if he'd tweeted anything about the A-League, and he blocked me.
That just means that he was searching his own name in Twitter to find anything about himself to block.
Colby, narrator, Robbie did in fact care. He cared a
lot. And that Redenton goal, Damo, that you were talking through, that was just a delicious team goal. And can't believe that cross came from Corey Brown. But like the team play that led up to it was just delightful and great way to score your first goal for the club. And I liked the ladies' league tweet. Kiwi Matty is greater than Kiwi Messi. That just tickled me. I've got to call him Kiwi Matty from now on.
Oh, I mean, when that second goal went in, I felt like Brisbane should have been in control of that game and should have run away with it. But it was such a nervy finish for Brisbane. Obviously, Victory got that. They got one back through what was a horrible foul from Aldred on Naboot that gave away a penalty. And then it very easily could have been 2-2. And just like when Victory played Western United last week, I felt like Victory, they were never really a chance of winning the game, but they were never out of the game. They were always making it difficult, and there was always right on the edge where they could have nipped a point and ruined it for the other team, essentially.
It says a lot about, I guess, where Victory are at the moment, that they were like sort of for the first 75 minutes were out of the game, and then finally in the last 15 minutes where they're 2-0 down, that's when they finally sort of start to turn on a little bit of quality, and that's when they actually genuinely looked like a threat to score.
Yeah, and I mean, I was particularly impressed by Triple L on the left for Victory, but it was actually when he went off It was actually when he went off that Victory started to play a lot better. Ironically, I thought he was their best player, but when he went off, as a team, they started playing a lot better.
Sometimes happens with a team, isn't it? It's bizarre.
Lots of young, exciting talent for the Victory as well. Tommy, I think you made a note in our run sheet about the 3 teenagers that started for Victory. What did you make of them?
I thought they were sort of like they held themselves pretty well. Like you said about what's his name, Lewis Laurie Latanzio. I thought like he amongst all the others, I thought they did a really good account of themselves. Didn't look out of place in the A League, but I guess it says a lot that in the last 10 minutes was sort of only when the Victory looked like scoring and really genuinely threatening threatening Brisbane.
I got a question about one of those young players that started, Tommy. What do you think of Jays Barnett?
Oh, mate, you really put me on the spot here.
Should have stayed at the Raw.
Is that his sort of claim to fame? Is that the interesting note about him?
I don't know. I just know that his surname is Barnett, and that's what the British call like a rude haircut, a Barnett.
I didn't get the question, Damo.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
just a quick shout out to Ivan or Ivan. I just wanted to say both of those to make sure I got it right. He mentioned that Sal's a Power Rangers fan. A big shout out to the Power Rangers guys. I don't know if you're Power Rangers fans as
I'm
kids.
a big Power Rangers fan.
Huge part of my upbringing, and you know, it's great to see it popping up in the MTAG TV comments chat. So I salute you both.
Jesse,
I salute you both.
Jesse, you would have been a Blue Ranger fan, wouldn't you? Triceratops or?
I'm your OG Power Rangers. I'm back when it all began. Back when they were just flogging putties. Yeah, you know, you just had your reds, your golds, your pinks. There was none of this, none of the green, none of these sort of flamboyant Power Rangers. It was just the simple. It was the Fabulous Five or whatever they were called.
I didn't realize green was a flamboyant color.
Oh, mate, as soon as green came in, mate, it really
ruined
the Power Rangers into disarray. Yeah, exactly. So, I may be digressing into Captain Planet areas as well, but yeah, great to see Power Rangers mentioned in the chat.
Who would win a game of five-a-side? The OG Power Rangers or the Captain or the Planeteers?
Oh, the Planeteers for sure.
Oh, they've got that South American, but he's pretty good. He's got to be really good. Like, he never did anything for the Planeteers, but I reckon he could bang in goals.
We're definitely putting this to a poll on social media.
The Planeteers wouldn't score anything because they're so selfless doing everything for the planet that they won't be able to put the ball in there. They just keep passing to each other.
You're too busy.
No, you score. No, you score.
Oh shit!
That's right.
Okay, and just one final question on this game comes from the Football Enjoyer on Twitter, and he asks, do the Raw stand a chance in the finals? Because the Raw, if you don't know this, are in fourth spot, 4 points ahead of Perth Glory. So, albeit Perth have got a game in hand, do we rate them come finals time, boys?
I think from all the other teams.
FC.
I think all the other teams at the top of the league, you know, you look at Sydney, City, Wellington, are the three above them, look a step above Brisbane since the return from COVID. Like, yeah, Brisbane are in fourth place, but they've somehow managed to get themselves in fourth place without having actually played any really decent football all year. I feel like they've fumbled their way through this season and got a lot of results that they probably shouldn't have.
You're going to get blocked by Robbie with that kind of attitude, mate.
But I mean, but in saying that, like we've spoken about it so many times before, is the finals, particularly in the A-League, anything can happen in a one-off game, and the situation with no fans, Brisbane on their day could probably beat any team in the league if they get it right. So like Jesse said, Wildcard FC.
Wildcard FC or Robbie's Legacy FC, depending on the side of the team. Look at
Imagine if Brisbane Roar go on to win the grand final, Robbie Fowler would tweet about it. I'm so glad that my team won the championship.
Of course he would.
And he would add it to his resume. I won the league with Brisbane Roar.
Of course he would.
100%.
You know it's true. You know it's true.
Okay, boys, looking ahead to next week, the Festival of Football is continuing tonight where Newcastle take on the Woo. Let's give a quick preview. Who have you got your eye on tonight, boys? We'll start with you, Tommy.
Ooh, look, every game is just an opportunity or every Woo game is just an opportunity to see more of Diamante. Like he's for me is the big reason why I guess I'm was excited about the A-League to come back, was so that I could see more of him. Like we've seen so much of him on social media, and I mentioned that last week, but he's just such a pleasure to watch, like on the pitch. He's capable of the spectacular, the unpredictable, and just it gets me going. Apart from that,
I can tell.
Jeez. Damo, what about you, mate?
I think, like a lot of people on soccer Twitter tonight, a lot of the chat's going to be about Burgess again. There's been so much talk about him, and he's Burgelicious lately. 5 goals in his last 3 games, and he's been playing decent football as well. Let's see how he can handle the pressure of, he's expected to shine tonight.
My focus, Colby's on the Jets. Looking across at the Garte in midfield there. And Roy O'Donovan. I think Roy O'Donovan's due a moment, and that could kickstart his, what's left of the season, I guess. But he's due a moment. Jesse Farm look like, yeah. So I reckon but I have to say the person probably that out of the 3 of them that I think is going to have the best impact is probably Petratos, actually, because I think he'll be buzzing after his late goal against Sydney. So he's one to watch for me. Which
Petrati have you got your eye on, Jesse?
We just refer to him as goal scoring Petrati these days. That's how we differentiate.
Boys, I just got a quick note on the Jets. Obviously, at the start of the season, the signing of Wes Hoolahan was such a big deal, and everyone was like, oh, this is really exciting to have a player like him come to the A-League. And obviously, he had the injury, and coming back from the injury, he never really took off. I think he played 4 games in total across the season.
Gets really grounded, the Jets player.
He's just signed for Cambridge United in League 2, who were finished, I think, 1 or 2 spots above relegation to the National League. What does that say kind of about the level of the A-League, or more so the level of Newcastle, that someone that was a big name signing coming to the A-League is gone to a team that could very well be in the 5th tier of English football next year?
I don't know if that says much about the A-League's level as it does about the current sort of state of the game and the current state of the world football in COVID. It sounds like he's sort of just gone home and gone wherever he could get a job, basically.
Yeah.
So I mean, it would have been great to see a bit more of him in the A-League. Shame about the injury, and shame that shame about the failure to launch at the Jets. But for this game, boys, this was supposed to be a quick preview, but we're getting some good chat out of it, so it's fine. But who needs to lift tonight? And probably a good one for you to take, Tommy.
Ooh. I guess this is one of the first, key matches for the Woo. I guess they beat Victory last week, but this is their second of 6 games that they've got in the post post-lockdown A-League resumption. So I guess they need to, looking forward to them really trying to generate some form. Obviously, like I said, they beat Victory last week, and this is an opportunity for them to I guess, beat like not a threat for finals football, but it's an opportunity for them to really sort of push on with those final games. So you've got a bit of a stat for you guys. The last 14, there's still 14 games left in the A-League for the season, and 5 of them involve the Woo. So get ready for much more Diamante over the next probably two weeks, I think it is.
Yeah, that's.
Hope the lad's body holds up. Yeah.
I think, Colby, to answer your question about who needs to lift, I think the Jets need some lift off.
Well,
There he is. There he is.
Why does that one get me? It's like the most basic joke, and it just tickles me.
Every time, works every time.
It gets me.
Looking for some inspiration paints.
Big festival of football coming up this week, boys. There's a match on every day this week, so no break. We've got Victory and the Mariners on Monday, Western Sydney, Perth. We've got Wellington and the Raw on Wednesday, Adelaide, Sydney on Thursday, and the Woo back again on Friday, taking on the Wanderers. Which match are you looking forward to, and why, Damo?
I'm looking forward to Wellington versus Brisbane. Obviously, that's, Colby, you and I are both Brisbane fans. Jesse's a Wellington fan, plus the added, flavour of the game that it's going to be two sides in the top 4 going head-to-head, two sides that will most likely feature in the finals and could come up against each other in the finals. So it'll be a really interesting battle just to see where both teams are at.
Tommy, what about you, mate?
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to the Victory playing Central Coast, because I really want Central Coast to get up, because that would be fantastic. And just let me check the table now. What are they? They're 5 points behind, and so they, even if they got the win, they wouldn't leapfrog the Victory. But
6-pointer.
Yeah, well, that's it. With this, if they do win, then they can go 1 point above them if it's a 6-pointer.
I reckon Colbs. I reckon I'm a little bit split. The Wanderers glory game, I think, is for me the pick, because as far as what's got the most writing on it, I reckon that's a cracker, because the Wanderers are really desperate, and Perth look to be searching for a bit of form at the moment. We all know they're a very, very good team, but can they click when they need to click? Against a team, the Wanderers will be riding high after a win early in the week, and we haven't seen the Wanderers click either. So that should be a really good matchup. Usually I'd say Adelaide-Sydney would be my pick of the bunch, but I think just the fact that Sydney doesn't have too much to play for, and if Adelaide win that game, I wouldn't be too surprised. So I think for me, it's got to be Wanderers, Perth glory.
Jesse, I think that's a good shout, because whilst Perth is sitting in 5th at the moment, they're level on points with Adelaide, and they're only 4 points above the Woo, who have got still, like I said, 5 games in hand. So the Woo could quite easily leapfrog Perth over the next sort of 10 days or something. So Perth have only got, I think, a couple of games left, 2 or 3 matches left. So they really need to pick up points to cement themselves as a finals candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I probably would have said the Adelaide-Sydney game as well, just because Adelaide, seemed to be flying in that game against Perth, just scoring for fun, but letting in a few as well. I know Izzo has the best save stats and save percentage in the A-League. I mean, it's probably moved a little bit because of those 3 that he let in against Perth, but just to see how Sydney will bounce back as well after their loss. So I think that's an interesting one too. But that's probably going to do it for us, boys. It's supposed to be a half-hour podcast. Don't know, or video. Don't know how long we've been going for, but
almost an hour, mate.
Out there.
Okay, we're about to click over 54 minutes.
And half of that was me just like sitting there on mute, waiting to like hear whether I dropped off the call or not. But thanks.
The other half was 90s
so
TV shows.
Colby, before you wrap us up, mate, a couple more comments in the feed. The Ladies League TV, they did a couple of shout outs, and one final one as well. Sal obviously appreciated the dad jokes as well. So thanks everyone for tuning in and leaving comments. We can see them, which is cool.
Yeah, I know. Well, I didn't think we'd be able to, but this is great. So honestly, thank you for listening. And I think we will put this one out there as a podcast as well, just to sort of make it available everywhere, and in addition to our YouTube. But so yeah, thanks for listening. Get around us on social media. You know where to find us. Twitter and Facebook mainly, but also YouTube and also Instagram. Next week, or I guess from tomorrow, we'll be reviewing the Premier League season. So tune in for that. In the meantime, enjoy.
I'm excited. I'm excited for that, mate. I'm excited.